welcome to the Rosemary Myers Theater for the Performing Arts at the Charleston County School of the Arts. We ask that you please take a moment now to turn off your cell phones, pagers, watches, or other devices that may make noise. Flash photography is prohibited for this and all performances and events in the theater. Thank you, and please enjoy this evening's performance.
We don't read and write poetry because it's cute. We read and write poetry because we are members of the human race, and the human race is filled with passion. Medicine, law, business, engineering, these are noble pursuits necessary to sustain life. But poetry, beauty, romance, love, these are what we stay alive for. From Whitman, O me, O life of the questions of these recurring, of the endless trains of the faithless, of cities filled with the foolish. What good amid these, O me, O life? Answer, you are here, that life exists and identity. That the powerful play goes on and you may contribute a verse. Powerful play goes on, and you may contribute a verse. What will your verse be?
It's a pleasure to welcome you to the 2015 Senior Thesis reading. And my, what a good-looking audience we have here tonight. Oh, this is Emma. Sorry, I didn't see you there. Just to preface, tonight's 2-hour performance is rated mature due to some language and some mature subject matter. Thank you how excited all of you to hear the caliber of writing this class has come to achieve in their years. With their pinky finger, than 99% any student will meet their age. It goes beyond their immense hunger to mine the human depths for truths that they have been as these students to tell you see on stage behind me tonight are more than our senior class, and more than those who I've come to consider my own children. Sixth grade class, all the way through the program to graduation. And this is also a night where Miss Miles and Mr. Scapoletto say their final goodbyes. And while it saddens me to see 2 of my best friends and finest mentors leave, I know they are leaving this program, this school, the lives they've affected, all the better for being here. And it is because of these 2 amazing teachers, as well as the pool of breathtaking talent that this class behind me represents, that they have in this state, in this city, and in this school, the single finest creative writing program in this great nation of ours. It is because of all their talent and all their hard work that Beth Webb and I can move forward into the next chapter of our program's history, carrying this great banner with the pride in knowing this. This is their legacy. These 16 seniors on stage here tonight have played a vital role in our program's unparalleled success over the past 7 years, accounting for a grand total, and this is insane, I was surprised myself, accounting for a grand total of 300 regional and national scholastic writing awards. the most to this point of any class in our program's history. As if that's not impressive enough, this class has earned acceptance into some of the nation's finest universities, like Duke, Pace, Emerson, Bard, Sarah Lawrence, Barnard College of Columbia University, Johns Hopkins, the New School, Tulane, NYU, Emory, Fordham, Columbia College of Chicago, Reed, Wofford, and Winthrop. The process of writing, publishing, and yes, at times merely surviving the gargantuan task of completing their senior thesis is itself a small miracle. At the beginning of the year, each senior was paired up with one of our fabulous mentors. They were then asked to write and publish a 100-page thesis in 6 short months, which is a daunting task for even the most seasoned of professional writers. Simply the fact that they finished the whole book in so short a time is quite an accomplishment. It's hard to put into words how proud they've made me over the years, and rising always to the challenge, and doing so with a wealth of conviction. The mere fact that they are here tonight, having endured so much, speaks to the fiber of their character, their person and their strength. It speaks to the horizonless possibilities that they have to look forward to in the future. Tonight is truly a special night, a culmination of countless hours and tireless work, all leading up to this one moment. Tonight you will hear a few poems, a few stories, a few excerpts from their books, and yes, scenes from several of their scripts. Tonight, we will all walk away, counting ourselves lucky, to have borne witness to the profundity of their words, to a class of students that we can one day all proudly claim we knew them when.
Good evening. I'm Graham Crowley. My book is called Funny Gods. It's a collection of short stories and personal essays that kind of explore our identities as we move through both moral and physical environments. I'm going to read an excerpt from my personal essay tonight called La Casa del Whopper, which is named in honor of all the Burger Kings in Puerto Rico, where I spent my last New Year's Eve. From where we were on the stairwell, I could see little slits of the outer city block through the white metal bars. That day had been our last in Puerto Rico, and as if we had planned it all along, we ate at another Casa del Whopper that morning, perhaps to save money, perhaps because we still chuckled at the pseudo-Spanish of the title, perhaps because it was comforting. Sitting on the steps that night felt devoid of all vagabondish implications and felt more like coming to terms with where we were, no longer thrust out into the open like worms unearthed from a garden, but observant and perked with caffeine, waiting for the clock to strike midnight and usher in a new year. That old archetypal idea came up from my father. Any resolutions? I had to think about it for a while, feeling coffee steam up on my palm from where I held the cup, listening to the chirps and groans of traffic. I thought of the rainforest and the city walks, the restaurants, the people, the frogs, the cars, the billboards, the little girl sitting on the side of the road playing with a tire, the convenience stores, the ocean, sunsets, televisions, bedsheets, sunrises, the iguanas sunning themselves on trees. The feeling of utter, unstoppable departure in life, and my soul was shaking. No, I said. The street came alive through the bars as midnight rang throughout the city, throughout the island, all over the time zone. An explosion sounded at the end of the street, and the stairwell shook as red fireworks seared the air, jostling me wholly. I dropped my coffee in my surprise, ears ringing. Spanish yells of joy echoed from my left, following the inaugural cannon blast of 2015. I never heard my coffee hitting the sidewalk from 3 stories up. Perhaps it didn't. I don't have any resolutions. I'm not sure yet. A police car rolled slow and sirening down the street towards where the fireworks had been shut off. An altercation ensued between the happy citizens and the officer. I heard it from my roost upon the common steps. For every joy, there is a certain misery. For every lonely person in a city, there is an equally lonely person in the same city. And for every childish instinct, there is the jaded quasi-wisdom of adulthood. Through the metal slits, I saw a man walking down the sidewalk with a cup of coffee in his hand, steaming his palm from how he held it. He could have been young or old, fat or skinny, distinguished or nameless, walking into the shell of the world, perhaps into a crowded square, perhaps into a fast food chain restaurant, perhaps into the ocean where he could curl up like the waves and listen to voices on top of voices behind him, separated from their talk, but lulled by the sound, pulled into the tide where all swimming creatures are anonymous, and the world is the only thing that owns the world. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sarah Cornwell. My book is titled A Transient Place. It's a collection of short fiction that sort of focuses on the interaction between strangers and how they deal with internalized isolation. The piece that I am reading this evening is an excerpt from my short story titled Fortunes. In the previous scene, two fairly reclusive men are brought together by an accident, and this is part of the conversation that transpires. Maddox filled up 2 glasses with sink water and brought them back into the living room. One of them was chipped slightly on the edge. "I guess I'll have this one," Maddox said, handing the other to the delivery man. There were little black specks floating in the water, but they drank it anyway. "Why keep the broken glasses?" the delivery man asked, watching Maddox's lip carefully avoid the cracks as he gulped. "I don't know. I'm 43 now. I have to keep something." "Congratulations." "Some people keep receipts or mail," Maddox began. "What's there to say I have? I don't own a dog. I don't have matching silverware or china. I use paper plates. My forks are from Goodwill and my spoons are from another Goodwill. I own one steak knife and the tip is all bent out of shape, so even if I could afford to eat steak, I wouldn't be able to. And I don't even own this couch." Maddox scanned his apartment and recognized nothing. "Why not ask for those things for your birthday?" Maddox laughed. "Who's going to give them to me?" "I don't know. I use the cups from Fast Chinese at home. They're the kind that look like glass but are only plastic. You know those?" the delivery man asked. He continued. "One time I dropped one from my apartment window just to see if it would break. I've dropped them thousands of times in the restaurant, but not even a crack has come out of it. I couldn't see the alley completely when I let the cup go. I didn't hear it hit the ground, but someone yelled, so I ducked inside my window. I think I dropped it on 2 lovers." He smiled as he recounted the story, but became quickly embarrassed afterwards. Maddox didn't answer for a while and then asked, "In an alley?" "That's right." The men looked at each other for a long time, not in the eyes, but in the chests. They watched each other's breath rise and fall in sync. It was neither platonic nor romantic, neither friendly nor impolite, neither on purpose or by complete coincidence. It was dark now. They could hear someone walking up the staircase and down the hall, followed by the jingle of a key ring, a heavy door closing, and the quick click of a lock. It was so quiet they could hear her taking off her shoes, setting down her bag, and saying, "Honey, I'm home," to some strange man on her side of the wall. "I should," the delivery man began. "You should go," they sputtered in unison. "Try to step over the broken pot if you can." The delivery man turned half around in the open doorway and said, "I owe you some free food." "You don't owe me anything," Maddox insisted. The delivery man paused, as if there was something monumental all he said was, "Good night." The door closed, and Maddox stood still in his personal silence, crowded by his walls, just waiting for something. He had never managed to get the delivery man's name. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Haley Williams, and tonight I'll be reading an excerpt from my book, Words Fly Up, which is a collection of short screenplays that orbit the meaning of love and the place of magic in our lives. This is the establishing scene of Speaking Pigeon to a Pigeon, set in New York City, the winter of 2014. The protagonist is Ralphie, a 19-year-old introvert born and raised in Manhattan by an eclectic but loving mother. I'll be reading the direction and the dialogue of Gil, the narrator. Fade in. We open on Gil, a man in his late 50s with a beat-up old roller case. The street is muddy and windy, car lights are on, but it is not yet dark. Gil, looking into the camera. What a view, don't you think? The idyllic city street, complete with the gutter filth and the generous folk who pay off the mob. I'm no one much, as you see. I just sell bits of this and that to the immigrants who fall for a cheap trick. I'm onto flowers for now, but that won't last. The local authorities might call me a con man, and maybe that's all I am, but I've been around this town long enough to know some good stories. Maybe one day I will write my own fairy tales. There's a kid over there. Cut to, long shot of the sidewalk as though shot from the opposite side of the street. Ralphie is shown. His hands are in his pockets and he is dressed for winter in New York. He's wearing a cap that he keeps low over his brow. Gil, nodding. That one there. He's got a story, I can bet you. Look at him. He doesn't know the difference between a pickpocket and a CEO, but that's why he's got a story. That naive trust, he's the hero of every folktale. He's Arthur of the Round Table, you see. You just gotta give him his sword. Ralphie is attempting to strike up a conversation with the man walking beside him. The man looks at him, shakes his head quickly, and walks faster to get around him. Ralphie stops and toes the ground with his boot. A woman and her child walk past. The woman is on the phone. She is holding her son's hand, but he pulls away and stops to look at a penny on the ground. The mother continues walking and talking on her phone, assuming her son is walking next to her. Ralphie kneels next to him and picks up the penny and hands it to him. The boy just stares. The mother walks back down the sidewalk, still on the phone. She grabs her son's hand, mouths a word at Ralphie, implying that he overstepped boundaries, and pulls her son's way down the sidewalk. Gil, walking down the street, pulling his suitcase, looking towards the camera over his shoulder. Well, he's got some work to do. No Manhattan princess is swooning over him yet, but he'll get there. He's got potential. Heck, I've got potential. The kid and I will turn this place upside down someday. Ralphie walks with his coat collar popped and his eyes on his feet. People brush past him, but he doesn't look up or step aside. He straightens his cap as he stops inside a doorway. He looks left and right and left again. Gil, with a flourish of his hand and a wink at the camera. Of course, the only thing we'll shake out of it will be a handful of pigeons and some sewage, but maybe that will change. Heck, I've got a suitcase full of flowers that need planting. Do you want some artistry? I'll turn this whole place into the Garden of Eden.
Hey, my name is Noah Jordan. Before I start, there's a lot of people I'd like to thank tonight, but there's only one person really who's influenced me more than anyone else. That's Bart Simpson. I want to thank him. I'll be reading a poem from my book entitled Everything is Dirt. It's a series of stream of consciousness poems and poetic narratives which are placed in dystopian settings with focuses on imagery that was drawn primarily from dream journals. This poem is about something that I deal with just about every morning. It's called sleep paralysis. Hazy world, dreaming of a sun in the east. The mind needs a beast beast. It sleepwalks in my dreams, unaware that I am its creator. He walks through a world of transcendent truths, unaware that I still follow perspectives fluid in this setting below consciousness. In periods of rest, I'm never the beast. I'm the beast surrounding him. The beast is a dead pilot from another world. My mind leaves the rails, watching the rhythm of his steps, the soles grind against the rocks. He wails. The pilot is not only a pilot, he is a dust storm, turning like peak tide, swelling. You take so many wrong turns, there's nothing to go off of. I am the thing the pilot forgot, spinning like jet engines, dropped before exiting the atmosphere, falling to earth like this. It's an undocumented experience. The ground is too fierce against the bones. It is impossible to learn about falling. The flesh, it's tied closer to the mind than you think. This is the first thing you learn about landing. That is, don't worry about landing. Muscles and the wings cupped against the foggy sky, cool liquid islands pulling the arms out, eyes cast down. That part's natural. The thing you gotta figure out is where you are, crashing in through the night. The ego shifts into beams of cheek-burning rays, morning, pans clicking against plates in the chaos of morning dishes. Or can you smell the citrus of soap? The eye twitches from the outside in, tempting a revelation. While in a true dream, the cobalt cliffs are shifting. I can't remember the waking world. Any thought of waking becomes the dream, yet not quite. I am inside the room where my body sleeps, in that body, exhaling heavily, yet I'm only experiencing a memory back against the wall. Polyester. Desert a mattress stage once again, and I've got stage fright. Struggling to escape this familiar purgatory, unfamiliar eyes open. The ceiling, left. Black hole in the bottom drawer, right. The walls just puffing themselves up in the chest. Head swivels. Nervousness. It makes the teeth dry. The teeth biting the sounds. The pilot has his hand over my mouth. There are no cries for help. Though the lips jump and dance, reaching out for an angel to shake them from their stupor. I can't just sit here, but it would be better. I could let the pillow guide me on a leash, never wake. Without waking, there is no sleep, or whatever this is, my waking self in the dreaming world, beating the insides of a coffin. Stone ribs, stone arms, stonum. I know every self that I am now. In this moment, I am beating them and the beast.
Hi, my name is Anna Kalick, and my book is titled Recognition. It's a collection of short stories that focuses on humanity and the fact that we may all be different, but in the end, our common emotions make us similar. This story is titled Symptoms Include. Free-flowing hair could have been the same without the letter H. Like when scuba divers find themselves with a failed regulator and air spews out like mini volcanoes underwater, it becomes a lot harder to breathe. And though the H is very much there, and now he sits on the edge of his bed with a wig down to his lower back, he still finds it hard to breathe. It's like being trapped in a blonde dome of wool, feathers, and synthetics, but he's entered it himself. Now that it's sat atop his head, it can never really be the same because he's put it on, and even if just for a second, he has looked in the mirror and seen a new girlish approach to his body. Curves attached to a waistline, he is self-adhered under a small dress. His legs are longer than most women's. The dress is even smaller. highlighted cheekbones, so for now, the stubble on his chin is still apparent where he is not yet shaved, and looking back at him is still tried or taking He only knows the room in darkness. Shots of alcohol sitting on the bar, women swaying back and forth with their skirts dangling, and loose, beaded threads chiming against each other. They're beautiful in the dark. So beautiful, it's hard to tell that standing here in the daylight before the club has opened, they are men with bald heads and short eyelashes. He watches them scrub the tables like he hadn't seen them just last night, 4 feet above him on a raised platform and raised platforms, dancing and singing as if they were to go home to husbands and obstetric appointments, hoping maybe the kicking they felt in their stomach was a baby girl. But they were here, just exactly as he was, and he hated them for it. He wanted to lead them back to their dressing rooms and watch them paint their faces with gel liners and bright colors so he could look at them and see the beauty of a woman in a gown. Feel their presence as if their confidence could drag him up there with them. But instead, he stood at the front of the club, greeting guests in a suit and bow tie, as if he were in a barred-off box. An exhibit with a little gold-plated textbook definition of heterosexual male in ironic environment, and a pop culture explanation in parentheses, straight guy in a drag club. He wasn't. He knew that people must think he was just a shadow on the wall, standing beside the bathroom door, evaporating into the brick with a hello, welcome in, and stepped over by awestruck faces looking up at the women on stage and walking towards them like a golden-lit path illuminated past all the tables. In here, he hated that they thought that. But outside, just a few steps out the door, he tried to smile at girls like he was attracted to their beauty in less of a resentful way and more of a let's go out to dinner. That happened once. There was a time before he stood next to the door of the club that he took women out to dinner and even paid for their meal. He'd web his hands through their hair and imagine what it must be like to reach up to your own head and feel inches upon inches of tresses, locks, a mane of hair falling over or hanging up gently caressing the back of your neck. He wondered and stopped having dinner with women out of spite, out of jealousy. And now he was here, gawking at the real women on the stage. Not really a different person at all than he was back when going out to dinner.
I'm Taylor Hull, and I am going to be reading from my book entitled If There Were No Earth, Where Would We Be? It is a collection of short stories that deal with loneliness and how different people deal with that loneliness. The excerpt of the short story I'm going to be reading is entitled Gas Station, and it's about a man named Theodore who is really having a tough adult life, so he kind of reverts back to his childish ways, and he truly is innocent because he doesn't know any better. Gas station. The wind was cold, brushing against his cheeks like pine needles, making his eyes water. His jacket wasn't buttoned, so it flew behind him like a cape. The air crept over his back. The tires bounced on each crack of the sidewalk. People moved to the side. Theodore ignored everything around him and let his head be filled with the rhythmic clinking of Mike's chain. He found himself going in circles at the park, looking for something, but he wasn't quite sure what. Eventually, he sat on an empty bench and watched geese sleep. One of them kept ruffling their feathers, then squawking loudly before trying to put its head down again. 3 boys on scooters whirled by him quickly, stopping a couple feet away. They each had plastic bags filled with rocks that they had probably spent half the day just filling. They took turns taking rocks from their bags and throwing them at the geese. The geese remained still. The boys had truly awful aim. But all at once, a rock was thrown, a goose got up, honked loudly, and ran towards the boys, with its wings out. The boys stumbled backwards, tripping over their scooters until they were right next to Theodore. He turned towards the startled boys. "Have you guys ever smoked cigarettes?" he asked, fiddling with the box in his back pocket. "No, don't those kill you?" "No," Theodore quickly said. There was silence for a while. The kids began walking towards the geese again, which were all moving slowly away. Theodore got up and stood next to them. He took a rock from a boy's bag and threw it. "Would you want to try one?" he asked, nervously moving his feet in circles. "No," the kid farthest away from him said. "Look, I just really want to know what it would feel like for you. It's different because you're a kid." "Well, maybe you should have done it when you were a kid instead of asking us." "I didn't want to know what it felt like then, and I want to know now." He was no longer standing awkwardly. He was excited, enthusiastic, moving his hands while he talked, looking longingly at each kid's face while he waited for an answer. "I'll try it. My mom likes them," a kid with freckles said. Theodore reached in his pocket, opened the new pack, and handed a cigarette to the kid using only 2 fingers. He was sure not to touch the part the kid's mouth would be on. He knew that kids had a weird thing about germs. Then he reached in his front pocket and took out a lighter. As the flame got closer to the cigarette, the kid's eyes got a nervous look in them. He looked at the glowing embers on the end of it. His eyes met Theodore's, and he held them there for a second as he put it to his lips and tried to inhale. But within seconds, the kid was coughing smoke and sparks, a lighter without fluid, and Theodore ran. He left the kids and went right through the geese, escaping the awful hacking. He was right. Their lungs are like paper. And that night, he couldn't sleep. Every time he dozed off, he dreamt he fed a kid a lit match, and the kid instantly burst into flames. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Douglas Smith. My book, The Transcendence of Our Nature, explores the inner fears of characters and their processes of dealing with these fears and realizations. Today I'll be reading a short piece I wrote about some of my current fears called The Secret of Growing Up. The Secret of Growing Up. There is a dark and compacted piece of me that still lives within. Being only the age of 17, this gloomy, simplified being happens to resemble fear, or possibly even regret. During my 3rd semester of high school, I realized that being a man and growing up can, in fact, happen whenever you want it to. Well, actually, I realized this the summer before my senior year. The summer had been a mildly hot one, close to the Atlantic Ocean. My friend and I walked our bikes to the woods when we got to thinking of what would happen after our final year of high school. Would we still be friends? Would our conversations slowly dwindle away until nothing was left besides a small photograph of the 2 of us on his front porch, one arm around the other? I couldn't be certain. He had smaller, less expansive dreams than I, and I worried for him, since he always lacked motivation. His mother fed him a pill every day for this slight learning defect. I, on the other hand, had plans to go to college, hopefully find a decent home, possibly start a family, and slowly die a long and peaceful death. What about after college? What are you going to do then? He asked. The gears on his bike tinkered away at the metal spokes. There was a pause, but the forest around us continued. Birds chirped, frogs croaked, and squirrels scratched their way up oak trees. Couldn't tell you. I don't even know what classes I have next semester. He smiled. We made our way over a large log that crossed a small creek. The water trickled its way down methodically. Honestly, have no idea where my next step was. Should I become a writer? Should I become a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher? But then I realized that I didn't need to become something when I already am. Who was I already? A classmate, a teammate, son, brother, cousin, all of which resulted in one final answer. Family, friends, and love can truly hold the hands of all who wish to embrace them. I just don't know if I'm ready to get older, he said. We stopped our bikes for a moment and rested against the oily seats and pulled granola bars from our backpacks. I also wasn't ready for the world, but recently I'd become someone that he looked up to, so maybe I had to be for his own sake. I took a bite of the grainy bar, looking onto a forest edge. This is where we left everyone. This is where we grew up.
mainly the one that exists between two adult twins. In this scene, one of the twins, Diane, voiced by me, is conversing with her mother, voiced by Haley, while in her long vacated apartment. I did it again. I did it. I'm home again. I remember our first appointment. I didn't really know what to make of the whole thing, but you told me not to worry, that I'd have to think of it more as a living laboratory. Ever thought the subject would find her way out? Give me 1 minute, Dr. Pearson. I'm getting another call. She brings the phone into her lap, presses a few buttons, and returns it to her ear. Hello?
Hello yourself.
Good afternoon, Mother. I was just going to call you.
Really?
Yes, I just had to settle in first.
Well, what I want to know is when you plan on visiting me, if ever.
It's good that you mentioned it. I was thinking of that too.
You don't say.
It's a natural thought process. I figured that after a call, you'd definitely want to see me. I didn't really plan on it being so soon, though.
I didn't plan on it being so late. If I want to catch you, I have to make the first jump. It's a natural thought process for a mother to worry about her child.
Of course it is. I don't begrudge you that.
Can I break the ice for a moment?
What do you mean?
I just want to say something without having to make all of this trouble. It takes a lot of effort for me to piece together words, hoping you won't laugh at them. I don't think I have ever before, but I intend to let you know how sorry I am.
For what?
For whatever I did to make you keep your distance, and for so long. I also wanted to say how glad I am now that you're back, even though I know you'll probably be leaving soon, again.
Mom?
Yes, Diane?
Let me tie up this call on the other line and finish talking a little later.
Fine.
I will visit before I go.
Sure.
Bye.
Bye.
She presses another button on the phone. Dr. Pearson? That was my mother. No, I don't want to talk about it now. We'll talk later. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Savannah Osborne, and my book Absent Light consists of several short stories and poems focusing on isolation and inward conflict. I will be reading an excerpt from my story, The First Day, about a young girl and her experiences with her mentally ill mother. Memory doesn't quite work the same way when you're a child. It's as if the part of the brain that connects consciousness to the ability to tap into certain areas is still undeveloped, and you're left with this sort of scattered process of action and thought pattern. I remember I had friends. I was never allowed to go to their houses. I remember watching television, bright colors and high-pitched voices. I remember listening to my mother sing long before the first day. She was so different then, so quiet and small. I remember my father. I cannot see him anymore in my mind, but I can hear him. A dark, angry sound. I remember feeling a pit inside my chest like a boiling black mass, and I shut my eyes tight. See, it doesn't matter what time it is. It just is. You get it? By the time the adventure ended, the first day seemed very far away. I could describe how the day was overcast, my mother's favorite time to go to the beach. I could tell you about how the sand felt beneath my feet, or how the wind fleetingly made me think back to the first day. I could describe the sound of the ocean, or the way it felt crawling up my pant legs. I could describe the way she looked when she asked me to get back into the car. Hair wild, pants dripping, as she stared out across the vast stretch of water. I could describe the way the engine sounded, melting with the white noise, just out of reach. I could describe all of this and more, but the one thing I could not is the way my insides felt all at once as the edge of the earth grew closer to the windshield, and there was only water that existed in this place, wherever we were, and before we ever dropped off into the sand, I was already drowning. In my head, drowning in the sound of the wind and the the ocean and my mother shouting, and like the first day, I was inhaling and exhaling faster than my chest could keep up. There's an unnamed emotion somewhere within the pits of all of us that we deny beyond all reason until it is swallowing us whole. And I lay in the core of its belly, pulsing and trembling, hurled within myself. She was shouting, "We are. We are." And I knew that I was, and I knew that she was, and there was nothing but this vast expanse to swallow us into the safety of release from the tragedy of everything we had ever known. It was surreal, and my earthbound existence was yet again unimaginable, though it was occurring directly in front of me and ending directly in front of me. I could feel myself screaming, but I could not tell you from which emotion the sound came, for I felt everything all at once and nothing all at once. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Suzanne Jackson, and tonight I'll be reading from my book, Sharp Corners. This book is just a collection of short fiction and nonfiction that just kind of deals with the idea of the importance of looking back before looking ahead. My excerpt that I'll be reading from tonight is from my final piece, and it's actually my title piece as well, that elaborates on a memory that I have of a childhood friend of mine and the moment that I believe our paths sort of diverged. There's a game you can play in the swimming pool, invented for lonely swimmers, such as myself, where you scatter a collection of rings or sticks into the water and see if you can collect them all on one breath. My lung capacity is only good enough to gather up all but one or two, the ones that were thrown the farthest from the others, just as my memory is only good enough to remember most things, but not all. Due to my lack of introspection, I can't decide if this is because of a conscious choice or not. I want to get all the rings, I really do, but maybe I don't want to relive the event in the 3rd grade that made me so embarrassed that I hid underneath my desk all through morning break. I can remember just everything about those 15 minutes. The texture of the carpet, the smell of the classroom, the colors of the folders stacked underneath my chair. I can even remember the library book belonging to my classmate that she kept underneath her desk next to mine. Why can I not remember what humiliation brought me there in the first place? My mother can recall most things as if her mind is composed of film negatives that only need to be held up to the light, but unfortunately, this talent isn't hereditary. While she remarks on that specific Bee Gees song that was playing at her sophomore year sorority semi-formal when her roommate regurgitated her mini drinks onto the dance floor, I struggle to find my shoes in the morning, and when I do, their location always surprises me. When I was younger, I had a reliable method of finding anything I had lost in my room. I would drag my desk chair into the center of the carpet and gaze across the mountains of dirty clothes, beyond the hills of dolls made up with permanent marker and with hair styled by an intrusive hamster. And if everything went as planned, I would spot my left sock or my banana-flavored chapstick. But it's harder to devise this gesture in your head. There have been times when I've heard a song or a phrase or a laugh or a cry, and my stomach will feel the way it feels when you're on a plane and you realize that you forgot to pack your toothbrush. It's okay, you can buy a new one when you land, but if you forgot something as simple as your toothbrush, what else will you discover missing when you unzip your suitcase? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Amelia Nielsen, and today I'll be reading an excerpt from my short story, Any Other Circumstance. It's about a man whose daughter died unexpectedly decades ago, and he's yet to cope with it. He's an unreliable narrator and tells his story in short scenes due to his heavy drinking. My book is titled Completely Out of Existence and is a collection of short stories and screenplays dealing with family relationships. I've never been a heaven man myself, really. Never thought I could make it up the big steps. The billboards say I'm going to hell, and I don't know if I believe them or not, given that they're billboards and the people behind them are in the scaring business, but sometimes I wonder,
billboards and think, well, shit, that billboard is saying I'm on my way to hell, so I better get right with the Lord to make sure that billboard is wrong. I wonder how many people are getting right with the Lord because of billboards, a line of them going up the steps, thanking billboards that they aren't going down. This truck with red flames passed me on the highway when I was chuckling to myself about how billboards can be liars like everything can be liars. Lots of them have that. Some of them have these light blue clouds, and you're supposed to want to go up to these light blue clouds, but I've always been afraid of heights. Maybe the closest they're getting to heaven is passing by these billboards. She didn't believe me when I said I kept a business degree in the glove compartment of my truck. She said there must have been more tires on that truck than days I spent at school, and I laughed, but I didn't want to. Just felt like it was what I was supposed to do. And she had these sad eyes, and I didn't want to do something to make her even more sad. She's one of those girls that lets men touch her. Not me. I wouldn't touch her. You don't lay a hand on a lady, I always say, even if they got devils inside. I couldn't fit the frame in there, so it's a little crumpled, and sometimes you open it up and little crumbs fall out, but it's there. That's an expensive napkin, she laughed, pulling her hair back in her hands and letting it fall again. She had on one of those t-shirts that goes to her elbows and her knees because she didn't want to go outside in that little number she had on underneath. And I didn't want her to either, not with the kinds of people that are around here. And I told her that, and she laughed the way I laughed, and I shut the door. I'm going back inside, she said, and I grabbed the sleeve of her t-shirt as she tried to walk away. Adelaide came back from school in '96, all drugged up looking, the neighbors told me. She was 15 at the time, and my God, did she think she was something, but she was a good kid. Not the kind of kid to run around on something, and I'm not just saying that because she's my kid and I couldn't think of her in any other way. Adelaide was one of those kids you just knew was good, even if she was something. When they called, I didn't answer. Wasn't even in the state when I didn't answer. The neighbors called the cops instead, but they should have known no daughter of mine would be that way. She died of rise. That was a tough day. The funeral director asked me what I wanted her to wear to the funeral, and how was I supposed to know something like that? One of the neighbor girls chose. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Dmitry Grigoriev, and I'm going to read some of my book, No More Light Years, today. I'm going to, actually, my book is a collection of short stories featuring sadistic protagonists, a variety of them, and it's rounded off by some more personal poems, like a few of them, which are less sadistic. And the excerpt I'm going to be reading today is from a story entitled All Dogs Go to Heaven, which takes place in an uncertain American future, and it follows a ageless narrator as he describes his relationship with his best friend, as well as the society that surrounds them. Oh, and this is 3 minutes of your life you'll never get back. To use an outdated phrase, Mike was my best friend. We didn't live in an era of friendship, though. Nothing was done casually, and if it was, we derided it. Everyone hated niceties and precautions, and as a result, everything we did was pushed to its limit, until limits eventually stretched and broke and fell away from us as we sprinted forward, full of abandon, daring something to interfere. For this reason, Mike and I had formed a bond of mutual aggravation, amalgamated in a modern furnace of pain and anxiety and mistaken identity. I rarely saw a relationship that strayed too far from the dynamic of our own. It was love evolved, fiercer, faster, the practical response to the lives of our working parents. Love with no soft bits, myanical, sore, violent, and attractive. It ran so parallel to hatred that if neither was curbed by self-control, they collided. Bursting in frustration wasn't uncommon. Men strangled their spouses until their throats were black and hurled themselves from high rises, eyes popping. Single mothers drowned their children, veered through bike lanes, off bridges. Couples fought with weapons. Gay men executed one another with handguns purchased at their local superstores. Pregnancies were terminated with rolling pins, and husbands were found with gaping holes in their face or groin. A trans woman on my floor was decapitated by her boyfriend's 50-pound lockbox. The end of injustice, stretched like an impossible moment, expanded into eternity before us, but somehow we had all been united in a frenzy of gore. Growing up, young, white, violent, and masculine in the greatest city in America felt like I was part of the ark, slipped a knife in an international fist fight. In school, we were often told snidely that we were living in the end of history, a smug appropriation of dead radical language. But our markets constantly shuddered like a decrepit structure in the wind. It wasn't a whole lie what they told us, but for many it made no difference. Despite the city's perpetual visage of inertia, its inhabitants hurled themselves against its walls like they would crumble and fall away, so we could walk free like primitive humans, or as if we could discover a point to our monodimensional lives and use it to impale ourselves. I swaggered around because I was not yet conscious of this rejection of life, this desire to wake from our unending American daydream, but I felt it in the marrow of my bones, where ran the bluest, most intuitive blood.
Hello, my name is Astrid Malone, and I'm going to be reading an excerpt from my book entitled Space Jump. It's a collection of fiction short stories that mainly deal with coming-of-age themes and is set in a small Florida town. It's written in 5 different parts, each in a different character's perspective, and this story in particular is from outer space. The past couple of days have passed in one big blur. Every night when I'm driving at 10:05, there's a spaceship in the sky and I don't know what it wants with me. This has been happening every night for the past 8 weeks. I know this because I scratch a tally on the steering wheel of my car every night I see it. Right now it's 55, 56 by tonight. I'm running out of space and the leather is getting frayed and starting to tear off of the plastic. I wish Walker was here to see it, although he'd probably poke holes in my theories, but that's why we're best friends. Walker left almost a year ago. He was too smart to stay in this watery hellhole. At least it's usually hot as hell. People always use that expression, hot as hell, but the only people who really know are us residents of Indian River. One time, Walker, Veronica, who is really quiet and funny and also Walker's sister, and I tried to fry eggs in the middle of the street when we were 10. Veronica suggested doing it on the sidewalk, but it was more fun throwing them from a distance and watching all of the whitish plasma-like liquid splash onto the block. It was like painting, but with more skill, making sure it lands in the right place and not in people across the street's yards. That made them really mad the next day when they would discover several mounds of egg yolk in their rose bushes. Cars kept running over our eggs though, and we gave up on the idea after a couple of hours. There isn't much to do in the middle of February. It's kind of colder, but not by much. I've always been fascinated by those kids who live in really cold places. Florida, their breath, I feel like it's consumed me, but I don't know how bad the damage is to my young adult life yet. I do like the way everyone here knows each other, so it could be worse. People in big cities probably forget things a lot. There's something I like about the way I know what everyone's face looks like and how they talk and who and what they don't like. It's like everyone's personalities are photocopied when I meet them and then filed in some cabinet of my brain that I never look at unless I see them again. Then it's like that really hates my brother and likes strawberries. You can't do that in a big city. They don't make file cabinets that big. I work at a store that sells office and home furniture. There's also a room for parents to leave their kids while they shop. I get paid $9 an hour to watch them. It's always toddlers and 8-year-olds who really want to go home and are really hungry. Occasionally there's a teenager who'd rather be in the kids' room than around their parents, but makes a really big deal about not being a kid. That's the worst. There are worse jobs. There's a kid that works here whose main job is to wipe all of the couches with a lint roller and to fluff out the pillows if anyone sits in them, which of course everyone does. Sometimes I think about him and wonder what he does when he's not at work. I think his name's Jason. I can't imagine that he's happy. My manager had me working the floor when I first started, but one day I agreed with a customer that, yeah, the gray couch was a way better deal than the big leather one with a huge shipping charge, and since then I've been banished to this most fluorescent part of the store. I come in every day at 4:15 just to see if anyone ever notices that I'm late. They never do. Driving home from work is my favorite part of everyday life. Some people hate driving, but I just don't get that. There's something energizing about driving at night when everything is illuminated by little blue and green lights and that all you have to guide you. It almost feels fake, like a completely different world where nothing can hurt you or impact your life. I feel like I'm in a video game and everything that happens to me can just be erased or start over. I think the only reason I think this is because everyone's asleep and there's no one watching what you do. Walker and I used to bump cars at night all the time and just drive away. The first time it was an accident, but then we didn't get into trouble, so we just kept doing it. We never bumped any nice cars, just ones that looked like they were going to break down anyway. Of course, we did it in Walker's truck since it was messed up and old, and of course he always felt really bad afterwards. But there was an addictive little rush before our heads jerked forward and we felt the impact that kept him from complaining too much. One time we thought someone saw us, but they didn't come outside. Another time I got a bloody nose from the steering wheel and Walker wanted me to sit in the back seat, but I don't let anyone drive my car, so there are little blood stains on the carpet. I guess it gives it character, but that's just what people say to other people when something's wrong with them, like when gap teeth or mispronouncing a word over and over gives someone character. The only characteristic it gives anyone is that they sound dumb and they have messed up teeth. I never got that. My neighborhood is probably the best part of Indian Hills. It's not the nicest. It's 10 streets of 1- and 2-story houses, but nothing bad has ever happened there. There's also a huge wooded area in the back of the neighborhood, and that's where the magic dock is. No one thinks it's special except me, Walker, and Veronica, which makes it all the better. It's funny how everyone in my neighborhood is so unsuspecting. Soccer moms just driving their Hondas and kids playing hopscotch and eating ice cream, and no one except us even knows about the dock and how special it is. It's funny in a sad way. People miss a lot of beautiful things in life just because they don't know about them. But maybe everyone has their own special dock or beautiful thing, and they just think I'm as dumb for not noticing it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Zoe Abaddon. My book, titled Postscript, is a collection of poems and brief vignettes that use absurdism and surrealism to convey themes of movement and the interaction between loneliness and solitude. This piece is entitled The Burning Space. There was a girl who lit bonfires with a black lighter that was nearly as tall as she was. When all of the lights were turned off in her house, and her mother and father and little brother were asleep, she pulled the lighter from beneath her bed and walked the path down the beach with the lighter against her shoulder. Her brother would wake as she left their room and beg to come with her, but he was too young and she was careful not to bring him along places. She shushed him with a strict finger and slipped like midnight water through the door. It was always dead low tide when she got to the beach, and she walked without worry of her feet getting wet. On her walk, the fire sites were already built, waiting for her light. Sometimes she came across couples huddled together with a single towel over their shoulders. bothered with her presence, so she lit their fires in silence, lights sparking in their eyes before she slipped away to the next fire. Other times, the bonfires were for loud groups of people with cups in their hands and carts of food, and they screamed at her to stay with them, feet dancing in the sand, always dancing. But the wildness in their eyes made her hold her breath, and it only grew with the fire flickering, so she shook her head and shuffled on, shifting the lighter to her other shoulder. She lit fires all night long, and when the sky began to pale, dragged her tired feet up the path and crawled into bed with the lighter safely beneath her. One night, a wave came, drowning her lighter and breaking it against the sand, so the following night, she was forced to wake her younger brother and tell him he could come with her if they could use his lighter for the fires. Because of his youth, he had only matches, and they walked to the beach balancing the matchbox on their shoulders. As they strolled ashore, her brother stomped between the couples and ate the food of the loud groups and danced on their feet, so she told him to stay put while she lit fires herself. That night, for the first time in years, the tide rose and rose and would have swallowed her whole if she hadn't hid inside the matchbox in the sand dunes. When the swell of the tide finally subsided, her brother had been washed out to sea. Seeing this, she fell to her knees and let the water wash beneath her feet. Her hands were listless at her side, and she sat there while the water rose. When the waves reached her chin, she stood and walked the endless road home. For many nights, she didn't leave her bed, and the beaches and skies were dark without her light. Then she started walking the shores again, but carried no lighter or matches with her, just walked and walked past unlit bonfires, and the couples did not look at each other, and the feet did not dance in the sand. One night as she walked through the dark, a large wave came, and her brother returned to her feet as driftwood. She picked him up and held him in her hands, and when the next wave came, she pulled the abandoned matchbox from the dunes to the water's edge and crawled inside with her brother next to her rib cage. They drifted through the water for many days towards a black horizon. Upon their arrival, she used her brother as a final match and relit the sun. Thank you.
My name is Nikita Naragitsky. My book is called Passage, and it's a collection of nonfiction essays and short pieces in which I recount personal experiences I've had and ponder what those experiences mean or what they taught me. Tonight I'll be reading an excerpt from an essay called Early Spring, in which I explore my own mortality and my fear of it at an early age. It is spring, my spring, which is an important distinction to make, since for the crying woman to my left it is autumn, and her mother in the bed has reached late December. We stood outside the room, the hospitalized woman's daughter and my mother, backs to the walls on either side of the door. I took up space across the hall, staring into the room. I was the first to know, besides the nurses. I saw their heavy fingers anchor her wrist to the bed and with a grave sigh draw the thin blanket over her face. I looked away to make sure I didn't make eye contact with them as they walked out of the room to pull the daughter aside. I was silent, standing there with my mom, who had told me we were just stopping by to offer our support. Seconds stretched simultaneous with little drips of tears forming around her chin. Her crying was silenced by the wheels of the bed unhinging from the floor, the little clamps making the body lighter. It began to roll towards the door as my mom told me we had to leave. In the car, I thought about the changing seasons, knots in my stomach tied forecasts of myself laying in a hospital on a cold winter night to my head. Just years before, this same feeling, only more pure, dawned on me as an elementary school child and almost crippled me to the point of not joining my class on a school trip. It's a wave that our minds receive at some point in our lives, usually when we are young. Inner clockwork ticks down to a silent alarm that I became afraid of for a short period in my life. Around when I was 11 years old, sometime after stepping in anthills and dropping tree frogs into the swarm. As a child, I was hypnotized by the way they kick their feet, and if they managed to hop to a safe distance, I would grab them again and return them to the colony. I'd watch their mouths slowly open and their eyes widen into black pools, flickering twitches of webbed feet kick dirt in little balls that would roll down the hill. I'd watch the little brown insects crawl over the frog's belly-up body, its chest slowly rising and falling, but the rest of it immobile. I watched it give up, which now I realize was the most frightening part, foaming at the mouth, ants crawling in between its cheeks, pupils fading into the same blue hue that puddles hold of the reflection of the moon. Then, in the fall, the frogs wouldn't come out so much. The lucky ones hid with blistering wounds of insects' fangs sunk deep into their skin. It was too early to be autumn for them, and that's what I became afraid of for myself. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Maddie Seabrook. My book, A Lamp in Thought, is a series of one-act, largely one-woman plays, as well as some creative nonfiction essays. The excerpt from my script, Infirm, that I'm reading tonight, has the same theme as my book overall, in that it deals with the character who has recently suffered physical and mental illness and is now trying to regain a sense of herself through humor and self-awareness. The actress stands downstage in a neutral state. It is dim. Not everybody is born into the right body. Not everybody is born into the right species. We are born out of water. It is a simplicity that moves through fluidity. The freedom of birds is nothing compared to the freedom of a fish. The sky ends. The earth is flat below. But in the ocean, the expanse reaches beyond the capabilities of our imagination. When there is such little possibility, there is nothing physical to hold you back. The actress now adapts a more lively persona to become Annie. She is sitting on the bed, balancing a stack of books on her head. She has just had her stomach pumped. The stage is simple. There are neat stacks of books, and her room is very clean. Maybe I could have learned how to pump a stomach when I was a Girl Scout. Not even a Girl Scout, I didn't get there. I was a brownie. A friend from another troop told me that she learned the Heimlich and how to make a raft out of pantyhose. We learned the proper way to fold napkins and about table manners. We never got to the point of courtship or balancing books. I think that's when I was screwed up, when I started having a relationship with pain. We were on a school bus heading to a retirement home where we had to read to the residents. And I stabbed my eye, 3 fingers right into my eyeball. It was swelling closed, and naturally I cried a little bit, but I didn't make any sounds. There was a chaperone whose lips were needle thin because she puckered them all the time, and she wore magenta lipstick that bled onto her face, and her mascara was applied so heavily that it looked like she had 3 eyelashes. She got me in trouble for crying. She made me put my head down, hiding my face so that no one could see me. It hadn't stopped watering by the time we got to the retirement home. The lady I was reading to was mostly blind, so she probably just thought I had a strange voice, but I was really holding back sobs. Besides, she spent most of the time sucking on a lozenge, but complaining about it because she was diabetic and hated sugar-free candies. Anyways, I blame that chaperone for the start of my issues. Anybody who had to witness makeup up close like that is bound to have a complex. Ha. I kid because I have to. It was prescribed to me. She shows a physical prescription paper on her beside. She shows a physical prescription pad that has a large smiley face drawn on it. And I have to write down every time I laugh. Ha ha. Maybe I held in my tears for so long that the enzymes modified and attacked me from inside, swam to my brain, and began decomposing vulnerable matter, making a depth darker than the Mariana Trench. I tried to cry underwater once just to make myself cry, but I still couldn't do it. It's like I'm thirsty from my eyeballs. I don't know if I just didn't feel it because the water was warm and salty and I couldn't tell, or if I just didn't cry at all. I ended up drying out my eyes instead. I cannot go into the water right now. I have to have sponge baths, just for a little bit anyways. I don't think I trust myself enough. So I trudge along the land, dusty land, bound by my physical body. Ha. Thank you. I think they did a fabulous job, and I think we need to give them another round of applause. Bet you thought I was gone, but I was really not. For the last 19 years, I have been telling audiences filled with parents, family members, friends, and colleagues that the reason we read our own work is to demonstrate to students that we are not afraid to do the same thing we daily ask our students to do. That is, put words on paper and share them with an audience. However, this year, my reason for being here is a little different. This is my final class of seniors, the last class I will teach from 6th grade through 12th. They are precious to me. Gifted, rebellious, quirky, perceptive, responsive, funny, brilliant, and sweet. And they are also very close to one another, closer than most senior classes. It is not too strong to say that they love and respect one another. I know that they are afraid of leaving one another and leaving this safe nest that we have created for them. So tonight, my poem is for them, as this is a sort of ending for both of us, me and them. I have some thoughts I'd like to offer. Warning. I'm here to tell you, I'm here to tell you, endings don't exist. Time shifts from one hue to another. One phase gently swirls to the next, like oil. Hot bleeds out to the edges, gets thinner, finer, hotter, until it glistens, ripples with heat. Time for skin seeps down the glistening youth skim the surface of thought, traverse archetypes of expression. Like the story journey of self. Don't be afraid of the voyage. There is only one trip, one ticket. Grab it. Jump on the train. The tracks have been oiled. Don't be afraid of losing one another. Concealed like nesting wooden dolls, your marrow is shared within bone. Cell linked to cell, never to be torn apart. And don't be afraid of endings. The ink of your blood is tinted with one another's words, which will pulse through your veins forever. Even when the rose of your breath fades from the window, words will give life to the bonds of your youth. Don't be afraid of endings. Thank you. This evening would not be complete without recognizing our wonderful mentors. So for a second, if we could bring up the lights, and if our mentors who are here would please stand. This task would be impossible without them. Please stand and let's give them a round of applause. This evening, I would also like to recognize one of our faculty members who I'm now going to ask to come up, and that is Mr. Sean Scapoletto. The two Italians are leaving. Sean has been at SOA for the past almost 7 years. His amazing knowledge of literature, his passion for writing, and his incredible ability to relate to students has made him an invaluable part of our program. Please join me in thanking him for the many gifts he has given to SOA. Both students and faculty alike will miss